The Expanse has found itself at a new home with Amazon Prime Video. They're gearing up for Season 4 with all 10 episodes set to be released on December 13th. On a recent visit to the Expanse studios in Toronto, Canada, where they are already prepping for Season 5, we had a behind-the-scenes peek at many of the show's costumes and accessories. In this first part segment, series costume designer Joanne Hansen takes us on a complete walkthrough of many of the key character costumes. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so this is what we call a reference board, and on this particular board represents images of our Belter group of citizens in the universe, and all their various looks from different seasons and episodes, and their costumes. So it's just a point of reference for us to what we've done, where we're going, and where we want to go in the future. We started on Ceres, which is down in the corner here. It's really kind of a hollowed out asteroid, and it's really like the feeling was like a souk kind of thing. So you can see there's vendors and there's your police force and general citizens, and just a real a place where people live and everyday kind of life. And it evolves in depending where we are on. This is Tycho Station. It's a station that builds spaceships and space stations. A lot of the workers are Belters, so they're partially uniformed and partially in their own identifiable kind of look. Belters are. They're a culture that's been, it's really an amalgamation of many cultures and races that are on Earth, 200 years in the future. And it's really a fusion of so many languages, culture, races, ethnicities. It has its own language. It has its own language of art and design in tattoos as well. So it's really a distinct kind of cultural group.
And you must work closely with hair and makeup.
We do. It's a real team effort in really defining what the look of this particular group of people are and how they evolve through the story.
This year has a bit of a Maori kind of feel to me. Is that sort of what's like?
Yeah, and again, I think if you think of this group of people as a fusion of so many cultures that we see on Earth, you'll see all kinds of inspiration in here, and there's political comes in as well as part of the story. So again, reference board, and this is for principal characters. Again, sort of just giving us an idea of key moments and costumes from each season and moving forward, and once again so we can follow the evolution of our characters and where they've been, where they are now, where they're going, and we in this area we have meetings with our directors and our producers, and our actors come through, and it's really a collaborative space to try and understand the character in time and place and in our world, and that's what this is used for. So through this we have our key family characters that you see on the show.
Mm-hmm. And then Holden here, I noticed you have, it's like concept, like besides the actual photos, you've got concept art.
That's right.
And Naomi.
Yep.
So who does that? Is there a concept artist who creates that?
We have an illustrator that we work with here. She's a costume person and an illustrator. So that's a kind of the golden combination to convey costume changes or moving forward. So in terms of an evolving character, this is a good example of it. So this would have been a former season, and this is what we might be proposing here for season 3, and this was season 2. So can kind of give us a place to
it's really nice now
figure it out.
To do it sort of like digitally.
You
can actually impose the actor's sort of characteristics.
It makes a big difference, actually.
But now, when you were actually creating the early designs for season 1, did you know who was cast? Did you have to sort of think about it without the actual actor in mind? Just the character?
Most of the characters were cast when we joined, but it was also a bigger concept around creating conceptually, what does 200 years in the future look like in this story? There was a lot of emphasis of it being as real and relatable as possible to us as an audience, but also understanding the science and technology that brings us forward. And what's that going to look like? And what's it going to look like, not in its perfect, pristine, clean form, but in its real, gritty form? We're out there, we're working, we're mining ice, and we go from job to job. What does that suit look like? So it was really more about that. Like, really, we needed to get a language for the universe, and then once we had that, we could place our characters inside of that. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, another question I asked you about is you're working with hair and makeup. Do you need to then work with props, for instance, like we have the space suits?
Yeah.
What's entailed with that?
So we collaborate pretty closely. It truly is a team effort, and I think when you're creating a world that doesn't exist yet, you really are collaborating closely with all of those people. And that continues to this day. And we are working all the time with props. If there's guns, where are they going to sit? How big are they? Where are they going to be? Armor, cresting, aging, helmets. It all really has to work together.
Everything seems to light up. Like the helmets always have a light within them.
Yeah.
Steam coming out of them. Within the body. So you have to incorporate all of that. That's right. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and you're working in a world that is one of the things that we came to understand early on is that you're working in a world that has. It's got 6 walls, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's the universe, but your world is always encased and it's dark. So, and light, or the pursuing of light, is always kind of a key element. And so that's why you see it like that. It's practical, but it's a story point too.
And one of the things that actually I like that you mentioned lighting. I do love it because even though it is dim and it's maybe colored lighting, tinted lighting, I can always see everything though. There's always, like, some shows you watch and it's so dark you can't see it.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think they do a really good job of mirroring this too.
Jeremy Benning is our director of photography, and he's from the beginning. Again, in our early stages, he was involved in all of our prep and came to our meetings, and we discussed a lot of that. And it shows, and he's a real artist.
Blue is really, it seems to be obviously a force, because obviously the parasite. The
protomolecule.
Molecule, pardon me. The protomolecule, has that very ultramarine blue. So it seems to, just looking at your boards here, it seems to sort of tie through your meetings.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the more input you can have creatively from the people who are putting together what you end up seeing, the better it's going to be always. Mm-hmm. And the show's always been really strong in that way. Yeah, so they're the basic crew of the Rossi that find themselves together. Initially, they're shipmates in a ship called the Canterbury, and that's the early day of it. They're working basically, and then they find themselves on a mission across the universe, and everything changes. But initially, they're working people, and so part of conceiving the world they're in and within the larger world. So their origins are they're working. They're either engineers or captains or the pilot or whatever their role is. They all come from different worlds. There's no uniform as such in this world, but it all has some relation to a flight suit, or your vac suit is your coveralls. That we used to use rig workers as our reference, and you would imagine you'd throw your vac suit in your kit bag, and off you go, and you work for somebody and you get a patch, and then you work for somebody else and you have another patch, or you get a new one from this company and patch it with so you
have the Velcro there, and then they're just like
we heat seal. You'll see it as we go through. Yeah. So, so in that regard, in some ways they're uniformed in that they all are wearing flight suits, but they're all individuated depending on where they've come from and where their least recent job was, and then individuate it. So in that regard, it gives a feel to this world without it being uniformed, and when we get to places like Mars, you have the real hard contrast of actual uniforms, or the UN, same kind of thing.
Well, I kind of like, you see in a lot of the shots that Holden, like he always has his coveralls kind of undone, a little more casual, and he tries it, like it's sort of his thing. And Amos has his sleeves kind of rolled up to show his muscles.
That's right.
And then Naomi's a little bit more uptight. Maybe she's the more professional one. So I love that. Did the actors sort of help with that?
Oh yeah, it's all a very collaborative process, and it's really about we only can take it so far, and then they really need to inhabit that character and make it their own. And
does a lot of that happen during a fitting, or do they just do it on
It can. It's both. It just depends on the actor and their process, really. But it starts in the fitting, and then it just depends when it lands, and that they need to be comfortable in the world as well. So it's however it hits them.
And then looking to Alex here.
So his background is Martian and Texan. A lot of people on Mars have origins in Texas, so that's his backstory. And
I'm trying to figure, is he Canadian though? Because I was watching his video.
Yeah.
Okay, so he puts on that draw. Because actually, he sounded like he had a little bit of it. Even maybe he was kind of in character when he was doing the video.
I think he was. I think he is in character.
He has his own YouTube channel.
He doesn't. He doesn't have a drawl in his everyday life, but you believe that character for sure. So he's great, and he's the pilot with the conflicted background, and we don't have a whole lot on his background, but we know that there's the wife and child and his love of his work, and he's sort of an excellent pilot, and his heart and his beliefs lie in Mars, really, even though he's no longer there all the time.
Yeah, it's like all of the characters come from different places, but then they're suddenly thrust together, but under these special circumstances that normally wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's a wonderful storytelling.
Yeah, it is. It gives so many backstories that you're able to tell. And then Amos, same. He's an earther. We know there's a connection to Naomi. We don't quite understand it fully yet. But we don't fully see his story. It starts to unfold in
He's always got a black
4 and 5.
Sorry.
He's that guy. Yeah.
Black eye, some type of injury. Like here, you see he's bandaged up.
Yeah.
I was watching the behind the scenes with Cass. He was like he'd had a big black eye. Cass had some gashes under his eye.
Yeah, great character, lovely person. Great guy.
And then what is, I haven't looked at this, but what's the insignia on the back of that, of his coverall?
So this is, I think it was season 2 or 3. So this was spray painted onto the Rocinante. So it was the Martian Tachi ship prior to that, and then when they took it over, he sprayed this out. And this has significance that the story starts to unfold in season 4 and 5. Let's do Bobby. So Bobby joins us early on. This is one of our opening sequences with her. And Martian, and we follow her journey through. We get to meet Mars in a ship, essentially, and understand the culture from that point of view. And we sort of follow her journey as she leaves that and sort of strikes out on her own. And she also she and Alex have a common heritage and belief in the Martian life and the sort of idealisticness of it, and it sort of starts to fray a little bit for her, essentially.
When you're thinking about the Martians versus the Earthlings, is there something that you're using as a comparison, like in terms of history? Would you be thinking like American-Russian sort of thing?
We do some of that. So we look to sort of militaristic societies like. On some level, maybe we like a highly militarized Germany or Singapore, and it's clean and perfect, and you don't see anything on the surface that would indicate that control, but behind the scenes it's there. So we kind of use that, and the UN, which is the United Nations. So it's focused in New York City, but it's now the entire world. Earth is all, not world, but Earth is all UN. It's a little more cumbersome, and it's a little, it's less it's militaristic on some levels, but not as ordered and not as contained, and rougher around the edges, and a little bit more factions. There's a less full belief in the system kind of thing. So you'll see it. It'll certainly reflects itself in the costumes. And yes. So this is our character Avasarala. Christian Avasarala is her name. So she is. Represents Earth. She is essentially second in command, and a fervent believer in her. One of her lines is "Earth must come first." So she's strong and opinionated and deeply intelligent and independent thinker, as you can see.
One of my thoughts when I first saw the show is like, isn't this refreshing to see a female, like a strong female character in a political role, not just as like just a Bobby, but I mean the entire cast is diverse of that aspect.
Yeah, it is a great thing.
That's one of the first things I noticed. So, so what was your approach to doing her costumes then?
Really, it was also very collaborative. It was the writers had a starting point of with South Asian flavor and color. And it has been a fully collaborative venture with Sheree, and we just keep evolving it as time goes on. And it's an awful lot of use of color depending on the scenes, and print, and all of these things are really. Everything's very deliberate, I guess, is what I could say.
But what I love about it, like say for instance here, you come into this room and you have everyone who's very militaristic, but then she just stands out in that beautiful purple. Yeah. Lots of jewel tones you're using.
Yeah, we always use jewel tones on her. Pretty much always are.
Is she the only character that you do the color for then? I mean, I know you have some color, but is she just to keep her standing out from everyone else? We'll just keep everyone else's palette a little bit more muted, and then hers would be the real punch of color?
Yeah, it seems like she's the only one it's appropriate for, really. She's the only one with maybe enough freedom and power to exercise that privilege.
It also shows some of her wealth, I think, as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That affluence that she has, maybe compared to other people, especially compared to the Belters.
There is a difference in wealth, but I would say if you were comparing costume and color and interest, they may be equal.
Okay.
So so as disenfranchised as the Belters are, their culture, it really makes up for that. So it's very rich in color and tone and difference. So.
The other thing is, tell me a little bit about this scene. This is like a really famous scene. Whenever I see anything talking about her costumes, about you, this picture always comes up because of just that entire scene with snow. What were the challenges? First of all, is that real snow?
Real snow,
real Canadian
2 feet.
Snow?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if you can see her winter boot under there. No.
She looked like she was struggling to walk through it.
Well, it was very deep. It was like 2 feet deep, and tried to keep fresh. It was cold, and then she had to manipulate all of these things so it looked as good as it did because of her ability to do it and move the coat and move herself. And
the cloak, of course, which kind of dragged. Like it reminded me actually a little bit of, sorry to talk about another series, The Handmaid's Tale, just that red against the white. Kind of like blood almost.
Yeah.
An outstanding costume. Also her jewelry. a huge amount of jewelry that she wears.
Right.
Is that collaborative as well? Does she have some things that she...
Yeah, initially we used a lot of her own pieces, and then as we went forward, it just became, we started sourcing further and further, and she never repeats anything, so that we are sort of constantly on the lookout for that, but it's always, again, always a deliberate choice.
Like even this, for instance, although it looks like jewelry, it looks like it's incorporated into the costume.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's part of the costume.
And this necklace, though, is incredible. So it's actually stones, like heavy, must be heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
ice. Ice and fire.
It looks like that's what it is, basically, you're going for, right?
Ice and fire.
Ice and fire.
This is, so this is just, it's a really good cross-section of our character and her evolution.
Stay tuned for an upcoming interview with series costume designer Joanne Hansen, along with a behind-the-scenes full wardrobe tour. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.